Hello and welcome back to week 2, lesson 1. This is your first official challenge when it comes to diet. But again, I do not want to underestimate the importance of water. So you guys had a whole week, hopefully, to begin drinking more water, up to a gallon of water, hopefully, for those of you who have chronic inflammation. That would be you if you're listening to it. And I want to know how it went. So please post in the Facebook group. How did it go? Were you able to drink that much? What was easy? What was difficult? How are you feeling? Let me know all of the details. And if you feel stuck, let me know, because I'm really good at giving tips and tricks and trying to make this as easy and streamlined for you as possible. Okay. Today is our first food challenge, and we're going to begin swapping out processed sugar for sugars, options that taste similar but do not cause the same inflammation. It's so much fun to do this because, you guys, your world's your oyster. Look at the cover of my book, Piece of Cake, The Secret to an Anti-Inflammatory Diet, is of a cake. I'm talking about anti-inflammatory diet, and I lead with a cake. This is what we can do. We can have so much fun and creativity in the kitchen by swapping out these top 6 inflammatory foods. And today we're going to talk about just about processed sugar, so that we can eliminate the inflammation but still enjoy the taste, not feel deprived. Because when we feel deprived, we always fall off the wagon. It's like we can willpower our way through a certain amount of time, and then we're going to fall off the wagon simply because we feel deprived and we want to eat something that tastes good and satisfying. Well, we can have our cake and eat it too, anti-inflammatory style. And I'm here to teach you how to make that happen. And it begins with processed sugar. So before I dive into that, you guys, a quick little story. When I wrote this book, I wrote the outline. The book was for the top 6 inflammatory foods and how to swap them out. That's what I wanted the entire book to be about. And I sent it in to my book coach and editor, and she said, "This is super overwhelming. Like, there's no way anyone wants to read about all of these. It feels so overwhelming. How can you make this easier?" And so I sat and I thought for a bit, and I realized, you know what? If you become a renegade researcher and you really, really take out processed sugar, the kind of sugar that's not just obvious because it's in cakes and cookies and muffins, but the processed sugar that's hidden in things like soups and sauces and bread and things that you just wouldn't, meat sticks, like things, jerky, things you wouldn't necessarily assume there's sugar in it. If you eliminate all of that and instead find non-inflammatory options, by default, you remove so many of those top 6 inflammatory foods. And that's why I start with this. Most people start with gluten and dairy, and then they forget the sugar. Right? We're going to start with the processed sugar because it happens to be the number 1 most inflammatory food you can put into your body. In fact, it's so inflammatory that a number of years ago, the FDA came out with a statement saying that if processed sugar were to come onto the market now, it would be deemed illegal and a toxic drug. The FDA is a very conservative organization, and so it's a really big deal that they made this statement. Now, the big sugar corporations, which are a multi-billion-dollar industry, smacked down all of the they smacked down that statement through major lawsuits. They had huge lawsuits, and they won because they have a lot of money to influence this choice, right? But needless to say, that is the research, and those are the findings the FDA came out with, that processed sugar is a toxic drug. You guys, it is so normalized in our society. It's in everything, which we're going to be learning about this week as we become renegade researchers and really read the ingredients rather than the nutritional label. We'll talk about that soon. But so I wanted to put that out there. And really quickly, when the FDA said it's a toxic drug, right? Just think about for a moment, what's a toxin? What's an example of a toxin? I think about household cleaning products. I think about gasoline. I think about bleach, right? Would you put a toxin, one of those toxins in your body? Would you put just a little quarter teaspoon of bleach in your coffee in the morning, just in small moderation? I wouldn't. Like, that would feel terrible, right? That's what processed sugar is doing to us. But as you may have realized in week 1, when you were discovering how inflammation is impacting you in more ways than you realize, our body is used to feeling bad. So many of our bodies, we don't even remember what it feels like to feel so good. I remember being in that point when I was really, really sick and fighting for my life, and I couldn't even, like, I remembered memories, but my body couldn't go back to that place of what it felt like to feel so good. Sometimes we get used to like nausea, and we just, for example, a chronic symptom like nausea, and we just say, oh, that's my body. That's just part of who I am. And the truth is that is not your body. And all of our bodies are meant to feel vibrant and healthy and full of life. And that is why you're here. And that's what's going to happen. So I'm super excited. And it's going to happen through drinking a ton of water and primarily removing processed sugar, along with these other inflammatory foods that we'll cover these next few weeks. But processed sugar is huge. So what do I mean by processed sugar? There's over 50 names of processed sugar, and if you scroll to the bottom of the screen, there will be a little PDF that you can print out that has those names printed out for you. You don't need to memorize them, but be sure to read them and just look for patterns, like words that end in the suffix ose, O-S-E, sucrose, fructose, for example. Anything that has the word syrup attached to it, other than pure maple syrup, that is okay. But anything else with syrup, like brown rice syrup, sounds so healthy. Processed sugar, number 1 most inflammatory thing you can put into your body. Or beet syrup, right? There's a lot of different types of syrups that may show up. Those are processed sugars. I'm trying to think. Anything that ends in, what else? Xylitol or maltodextrin. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol, which is not great for you, but maltodextrin, right? So TRIN is another suffix that often, if you see in ingredients, you can be suspect that it's processed sugar. And then you'll see things that sound healthy, like concentrate, fruit juice concentrate, apple juice concentrate. Any juice concentrate, if it's concentrate, is actually processed sugar, and again, one of the number 1 most inflammatory foods you can put into your body. So you really want to be careful of what you are putting into your body when it comes to these processed sugars. So be sure to read that again, not to memorize, but to find these patterns. Then we want to talk about those are the sugars that inflame you. Let's talk about the sugars that don't inflame you. What can you have? How can you make this cake? How can you make cupcakes or muffins, right? So the top sugars that you want to be looking for, that you can bake with, that you can cook with, that you can find in bars and get grocery store swaps, which again, post those in the Facebook group, because I will absolutely help you find swaps if there's something you're craving that you can't find to be clean. But the sugars we want to look for that are safe to use is pure maple syrup. Not Aunt Jemima's maple syrup, but pure Vermont maple syrup that comes out of the trees. Raw honey. So raw honey has never been heated. That's what makes it raw. When we heat honey, it changes on a molecular level and causes an inflammatory response. And the same is true of agave. So the way agave is processed and the way it's heated actually causes lots of inflammation in the body, even though it's low on the glycemic index, meaning there's lower amounts of sugar that spike your insulin levels. But if you get raw agave or raw honey, both of those are great options for non-inflammatory swaps. And then, of course, there's unrefined coconut sugar, and this is a powdered granular type sugar. So some people, if you're baking and you need something that's granular, unrefined coconut sugar is great. I also love that because it's low on the glycemic index, so it doesn't have as much potency in sugar. And the last is, what is the last one? It was just on my fingertips. So we have pure maple syrup, raw honey, agave, unrefined coconut sugar, of course, whole fruits. So I bake with dates, medjool dates a lot, put them in a blender, and it's a great way to bake. And then Oh, of course. So these are not sugars, but these are sweeteners that also don't inflame. So stevia and monk fruit. If you can find them in the liquid form, especially for the stevia, and the liquid form, if you can find it for the monk fruit, those are less refined, right? They've been less processed, but they're derived from a plant, and they're not sugar, so there's 0 sugar in them, but they're healthy for you versus getting sugar-free, like sugar-free candy made with sugar alcohol, or those Splenda type sugar-free packets that you might find at a restaurant. Those are full of cancer-causing, highly inflammatory chemicals that you want to stay away from. So that is the processed sugar swap. What's really important to note, you guys, we're not focusing on the amount of sugar you eat, but it's the type. This is a nuanced shift for many, many people as you adopt this way of eating, right? You could have a banana that's a whole fruit that has 15 grams of sugar in it, and you could have a granola bar that's full of organic cane sugar or corn syrup, right? These sugars that are highly processed, highly inflammatory. They may have the same amount of sugar. So on the nutritional label, it may say 15 grams of sugar for both of them. One is a natural sugar that will support your body. The other is a highly processed sugar that will cause massive amounts of inflammation. So this week, your goal is to become a renegade researcher and to read the ingredients label, not the nutritional facts label, the ingredients label of everything you put into your body. If there is processed sugar in it, see if you can find a swap. For example, tomato sauce, pasta sauce, there's almost always processed sugar put in those, right? But there are some brands such as Cadia, which Cadia Organic is a brand that you can buy. They have a lot of different flavors. Some of their flavors have processed sugar and some do not. So you even have to look at the flavors of brands. When you read the ingredients, you'll see that their tomato basil flavor is free of processed sugar. So you spend a little bit more time in the grocery store or swapping things out of a recipe, but you can do it. You can find this tomato sauce without the processed sugar. Really, you guys, read the ingredients of everything. Go through your pantry, in the grocery store. Just spend time reading the ingredients. The marketing, the food company's gotten really good at the marketing, and something may look really, really healthy, but still a processed sugar. The only way to know is through the ingredients. That is my lesson. Become a renegade researcher this week. Let me know how it goes. And we will be talking a little bit in the next class about detox. So if you're feeling like, oh man, especially as you start to take processed sugar out, you may feel a little bit headachy, you may have some symptoms that flare up. It's all because of detox. It's actually a great thing, and I want to explain the science to you. So that is happening next. All right, have a great day. We'll talk soon.